Alrighty, so today is Monday, July 22nd. It's 30 degrees outside. It's a balmy summer day. And I thank all of you for coming to this meeting today. Because I know I would much rather be on my boat than here today. But here we are. As we go through the meeting, a couple things I want to do a little bit differently, I'm going to point out. I'm going to ask about policy. So when we get into our discussion, I'm going to ask you if there's a policy that covers that. And if there's a policy, I'd like to know which one it is. And if there isn't a policy, then I need to know why. Okay? Because when you look at the roles of council, our number one job is to set policy. We're not managers. So we'll keep that in mind tonight as we go along. 1.1, request for boulders.
There is no policy on this.
Okay.
Otherwise this wouldn't be here. We've had requests in the past for gravel, and this is in the area by our airport. This gentleman has put in a request to take about 10 of the bigger boulders because he wants to do some work on his property in the park. We can't just let him go ahead because once one does it, everybody does it. So he's asked for permission from council. There is no policy. This isn't gravel, so there is no value. One of the reasons we didn't want to sell gravel to people in the past was because of the cost for us to measure it and to do all those things. It was not worth our efforts, and we thought if we ever needed it moving forward. These are bigger boulders. He's agreed to clean it up as better than when he gets the stuff. I don't see any big problem with this.
What's council think? Sell them or give them?
I'm fine with them just having them. Nobody wants boulders, I don't think. Or there's more than enough boulders to go around, I guess.
There's lots there.
There's lots there.
Okay. So do you think, so there's a lot of them out there.
Yep.
Do you think this is going to come up again?
Yes.
As soon as someone sees someone taking them, probably.
So do we need to have a policy in place to deal with this so it doesn't have to come back to the table?
We could do a
Yes.
policy for gravel and for boulders,
Yeah.
Okay.
for materials.
Removal of materials from town property, would that be the policy?
I don't know. I'm not a policy expert.
Well,
We could
never
do
mind that.
trees, we could do rocks, we
Okay.
could do gravel, clay.
I don't want to give away gravel.
Not
No,
there.
that's,
Okay, no, I just, so
it would
we're
make a
clear.
policy as to when it would
Okay,
come back
sure.
and,
Okay.
Sounds,
So okay. So the consensus is right now, we're going to give them the boulders
Yep,
and staff is going to work on a policy for future.
right.
Everybody's good? Okay. Walking paths update. Councillor Zelinski.
I just want to know where everything's at. Because it's my neighborhood, I've just heard rumblings from different people in the area, and I'm just kind of wondering where things are going. They're talking about fences, and I just don't know what's been decided, or, because I know there was a group struck, or a working group struck between council and some of the people in the area, and I'm just wondering where things are at. And I don't even know who's on that committee, to be 100% honest.
Bill,
Yeah.
Carrie.
Carrie
and
and I.
myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
and there was a policy. And there was a policy.
And there's a policy?
Yes.
But we're not following the policy.
There is a policy, yeah.
The meetings that we've had prior, and the guy from Plannings,
Brett.
yeah, he more or less told us that we can't close it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had a meeting with the four closing and the ones that want to keep it open. And they came in 3 times now, we've had a meeting with them. And they've come and they've shared their ideas on the whole thing. So we come to a consensus that we would look at fencing the walkways with 6-foot style fence, not chain link, but a really nice steel fence.
Okay.
But we would put it into the paved area so that they would have room by it to look after their fence.
We approved it in our budget,
Yeah,
the fencing.
Yeah, no, I know, but that wasn't, I know we approved fencing, or we approved something.
Yeah.
But I just didn't know, so we're gonna put a fence inside the, like the.
it's like this here, like the crosswalk or the pathwalks are like this, like the
Yeah.
paved area.
Yeah.
And this is their private fences
Yeah.
adjacent. But what we're going to do is we're going to move the steel fence just into the paved area, like so, or hopefully.
Yeah.
and leave them area here, and the fence is gonna be up high enough so it can clean the debris and everything else from underneath.
Okay.
And they're going to be able to go in between there and fix their fences, like we're gonna give them some room.
Okay, so like a foot in?
Well, whatever we can accommodate,
Hmm.
yeah.
And
And you know it's gonna make this narrower, eh?
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
need to be as wide as it is.
And the other thing on this, they wanted more lighting, and as you know, there's only like the one light on each one now. So we're talking about like an additional lighting adjacent like that.
And I believe the tender
Yeah.
is.
The
The
tender-
tender for the work and the install, what they did
Yeah.
is they provided a copy of the fence that I understand everybody's in favor of, and they've got the tender out for the supply and install of a fence.
Is there, okay.
And then I believe you're meeting one more time after that?
Yeah.
Yeah, once we have the,
With the citizens, yeah.
Okay.
And you're welcome.
Well, no, that's fine. I don't know. I don't need to go to another meeting. I was just, it sounded like there were some people that were happy about it and some people that weren't happy about
Yes.
it, and it is what it is.
You're
You're not gonna
absolutely-
make everybody happy.
You're
I realize
absolutely
that.
right. There's those that are in favor of closing them, but the consensus was we would try this to see if it would accommodate everybody.
Sure.
Is there any cameras going in or anything?
No,
No?
no. We had talked about cameras in here,
Mm-hmm.
but,
Not gonna fly.
No.
Cause I had heard that they were being closed off, so they could be cosed at night or something.
we had talked about,
Oh, okay.
in our last discussion with them, and it was Chris
Affachai.
Athachow,
Yeah.
in his presentation, he had come up with a thing about closing these at 10 o'clock at night and open them in the morning.
Yeah.
And we haven't progressed to that part yet. so.
All right.
cool, okay. Rail Safety Week.
There is no policy on this. When we do pass resolutions of council, it generally comes to the table. It's not, it's requiring a resolution. So this was a letter we received from CN marking their 100th anniversary, and they're wanting council support by adopting a resolution to raise awareness during Rail Safety Week, which is going to be held between September 23rd and 29th. So we would require a resolution.
I don't think anyone has a problem with that, eh?
No,
Good. Planning and development, okay. Boat discussion, boat inspection station, Clearwater Lake. I asked for that one to be put on the agenda. Any of you folks who goes back and forth to Clearwater Lake, they have a very flexibly manned boat inspection station.
Lightly.
There's people there and there isn't people there. And there is nobody, and my first concern is, there is nobody checking boats that go into the Saskatchewan River. And the boat launch is upstream of the water intake, right? Our water intake is downstream of the boat launch. So in the event that there is a boat that came in from the south that had zebra mussels on it and they entered the Saskatchewan River, it has the potential to impact our water delivery system. I think we should, and I know Chris Smith from Cranberry Portage is very knowledgeable on this. It might be worth our while to ask Chris to come and talk to us about the issue and how to proceed with it, because Chris has been on the radio and he's
Held
very
meetings.
active on
I
this.
know Sam attended a meeting with
Yep,
Chris
at
at
the
the
RM.
RM.
At the RM?
Yeah.
So it'd be good if we got
Sam
this on our agenda, because if the government wasn't worried about it, they wouldn't be doing the level of activity they're doing right now. So I think we should be aware of it, and if there's something we can do to help protect our waterways, then we should.
And last year they did. Last year they did have a
That was 2 years.
inspection station.
2 years ago.
Was that 2 years?
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah, they didn't have anything last year. Last year was just straight Clearwater. 2 years ago, they had both at the
Clearwater.
river and Clearwater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the unfortunate part about the one in Clearwater is that the Americans have generally gone through in the morning before they're even there, so.
And they're just the Americans.
Well, I know, yes.
You know, I go by at 10 on a Sunday morning and there's nobody there. You know, so I would like to get that on the agenda, and Chris and Sam might be good to invite to a meeting to start the discussion. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Great. Alrighty, financial report. Issue sheet from the controller. Is that you?
See, He was the CFO
You
at the
say
council
sometime?
meeting, he's the comptroller of the committee of the whole. He's all over the place.
Oh, you didn't catch that, it was the CFO in there.
Pretty straightforward. We got April and May here. Catches us up.
How's it look?
For the most part, it's pretty on par. Some revenues are a little bit lower. I don't think there's really anything that, again, this is the same story I've told a few times. I don't think there's a lot that's blowing me out of the water here. I think we're pretty much on par for what we'd expect.
Are we,
At this point of the year.
even with like, not Railway Avenue, Hazelwood?
Hazelwood?
Yeah, that's, we have budgeted amounts for those kinds of repairs.
Okay.
I mean, it's based on prior year's averages. And
Yeah.
we've consistently had problems for a number of years where we're dealing with it. I mean, that's all at once, but we anticipated there was going to be some problems this year, especially with the water breaks we had in the winter, so.
So there isn't like a spike in overtime that you
No,
noticed or?
and I mean, with the utility, there's not much we can do anyway because our revenues are so
Yeah, I guess.
constricted. If there is gonna be a bit of a deficit on the utility, you try and cut your costs everywhere else and hope it works out at the end of the day. I know that's a nightmare for them, but overall, the rest of the departments are on par or under budget so far, and I mean, we're not far enough along in the year, even in May, to get a good picture of where we're going to be at the end, but I don't see anything to concern me yet.
Great, a question on procedure. So, in the fall and over the winter, council meets many times to discuss and debate the budget. Eventually, we reach a middle ground and we settle on it and we pass the budget, right?
Yep.
So, if there's an expense that's in the budget that we've already approved, why does it have to come back to council again?
Is it capital or is it?
Just your operating expenses? Because
Typically it wouldn't unless it's also something that we have to tender by our purchasing policy. So if it's above $25,000 a single expenditure, then it would have to come back to council for approval.
like this evening, we did our financials, right? We approved all these checks and the EFTs and all that sort of thing.
But why did you approve the monthly? Just for awareness, I think, more than anything. I'm not, I imagine that's what it is more than anything, just to know, consistently you'd see spikes or drops, I mean, and just to show that you've seen what's available for the information. I know, like, now you reviewed the checks a little bit. I mean, I don't have enough history to know why exactly this is put in place, but I would think it would just be awareness more than
Just
anything.
awareness?
And procedural to say, yes, we approve. We approve the daily activities that are going on month to month, week to week, or whatever.
If we've approved the budget though, right, way back when, isn't the assumption already been made that you'll manage it according to the way we budgeted it? Is it necessary?
I don't have an answer for you.
And I did look into that, and I'm having a hard time getting an answer from the province on that. But I agree, if we have other policies in place, such as our tendering policy, that should automatically fall under the tendering policy once I would assume, once your budget is done, you follow the policies of the town of the Pas, which means if it's a tender policy, we would just follow that policy.
So, yeah,
So
like,
maybe we might be doubling up on work, and I'm waiting to hear back from
that's what I'm
you both.
wondering about. Because if during the budget we approved a new loader for 200,000, you go to tender and you find one for 185, does it have to come back to us?
That one has to come back to you, because that's, one, it's capital. It'll require an expenditure from the reserve to.
Even though we've approved it in the budget?
Even though, yeah. And
Okay.
and it's above the $25,000 threshold for a tender. So anything like that will have to come back to you guys regardless. I think they've streamlined it a little bit. Under 25 now, Randy can approve it. Under 75, I don't think anybody needs to approve it, just the department managers.
But it's the process, Graham, it seems to be so long.
Yeah, if you look at other communities' minutes, they all approve payroll and accounts payable at each meeting. I don't know if this is just an ingrained procedure for communities. Again, I mean, we could follow up more and see if it's something that could be dropped off to some degree. Payroll is fairly significant. I don't know that you'd not want to be aware.
Well, the first time I became mayor, a quarter century ago, every week I'd come in and they'd give me a pile of time cards. I kid you not, they were like this. And they asked me to go through them, and why? Right?
There's
I don't know.
There's too
when-
little and too much, right? I mean,
Yeah.
in some communities, they may not get up-to-date financials, so this is the only way they have to track what's going on is through the expenditures. Knowing, yeah, this much went out this much, okay, I think we know what's going on. I think that seeing the financials is a better way to gauge it. But again, that could be something we can follow up on, we can find out what the province has to say. It may be something that we're mandated to do by the province. I know we're mandated, we can't do quarterly statements, we have to do monthly statements, they told me. So,
This is good, I appreciate everything you've done, right? For me, I'd like to know that we're within budget, right? So
Yeah.
if your 30% of the budget is expenditure, then we know, right? We're just making some assumptions, but sometimes we do things because that's the way we've always done it,
Yeah.
and there might not be a reason to continue doing that.
no, I agree.
So, that's all.
Yeah, we can look into it for sure.
Any other questions for Graham?
So in the tender one, if we pass the budget, if we pass the loader in the budget for an amount of 200,000, and it goes out for tender and it comes in at 185,000, which is under budget, then why, like Mayor says, why would we have to bring it back to council?
Your policy right now says you have to.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
so
our
we have
policy.
to change it.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect, there you go, good.
Yeah. And that's what we were just kind of talking back and forth and seeing some of the
So
requirements are set
if
by
we
the
amend the
province.
policy,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but do you want to amend
well, we're gonna get into that.
certain policies when it comes to the HIVA number because,
Well, we're gonna get into that.
So we'll require a resolution.
Yep,
for-
resolutions for those statements. Good job, glad to see it up to me. Reserve funds, destination marketing, yeah, don't go away.
There's two things here, right? I don't know if they're lumped together. This is just the destination marketing one?
Yeah.
Okay, so with the destination marketing, I know we had our little meeting there last week as well.
Yeah, it's all together. It's all the,
It's all together.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's two pieces here. Destination marketing, a while back when they had hired Kim, I had concerns that they wouldn't be able to keep proper financials and, or be timely about them. And since destination marketing gets folded into the town as opposed to the CDC, there's a number of problems with that not being up to date on our books when I'm doing my financial reporting. So one of the things that we had talked about was folding the administrative duties there into the town. And we would take over the check writing, we would take care of the accounting work and the record keeping. They would just meet, talk about their grants, talk about how they want to spend their money, and then submit for us to write checks. And they seem fairly in favor of it, but ultimately it's council's decision whether or not they want to go about something like this. And I realize you may not have an answer tonight because this is still in discussions, but I would really like to see this come back in our hands where, we're prepared for an audit, we have the documentation, we have timely information. It just takes some of this, me chasing people and not getting the answers I need on time.
Graham, you're referring to the destination
That's the
marketing
destination
reserve?
marketing, correct.
Okay, all right.
So there was another piece of this as well. I was talking about the reserves. I looked over some of the, well, as you may know, reserves require a bylaw to create a reserve and how we manage those reserves. I was looking over a number of the reserves. Some had restrictions on they needed to be in separate accounts. Destination marketing and community enhancement and recreational infrastructure were among those. Some of them did not have those requirements. Some of them had the requirement, but we aren't doing that. So my concern here is we get the best interest rate on our general operating account, which is significantly higher than any of the other accounts, because we get higher interest based on balances in one account over $1 million. I would like to see those accounts all lumped together with our general, and us just track them, just how we're doing now. Amend all those bylaws so we can just keep the money in one big lump, and that will increase the amount of interest we're getting from these accounts. And I realize that, in some ways, these accounts may have been set up to to make it easier, to make the picture available, or tracking may not have been as clear before. I don't need that to keep track of this properly. I would like to see us benefit the most we can. So that's my thought on that.
Could you draft a policy, how you would propose to handle it?
Yeah,
Because I think it makes sense.
yeah. And we may need to just amend all the policies we have on the reserves we have in place. That's fine too. Yeah, I can definitely do that. I just
Yep. It makes sense.
wanted to take council's opinion. Yeah.
Just the one thing with the destination marketing, like I know this had been brought up before, and I can't recall exactly what the argument against it was, like a year and a half ago.
Okay, so the reason I brought this up before, and they thought that it gave them a little bit more autonomy to have control of their own checks and their own bank account. I disagreed then, I disagree now. I don't think that has anything to do with their purpose. I think their purpose is reviewing grant applications, deciding how the money is going to be spent. I don't think us taking care of the administrative side in any way affects what their purpose is.
No.
That's just my view.
It could make their life easier.
It could make their life easier. And that
I
was
think it could make their life easier, I just don't think, like, it's not, I think part of the argument before was about scrutiny of the expenses, but I don't think that, as long as you've got the proper paperwork in hand.
At the end of the day, we aren't judging whatever they submit. Just submit something with signatures, and we are going to write the check. As long as the documentation is there, we're good.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I'm fine with it. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't something I missed.
no, and there was I know right now we have a separate account and they have separate signing. The other idea here is, it's a group of volunteers, and it's much easier to control something that falls within our general administrative guidelines for checks than having a group of volunteers that change all the time and signing checks and.
Well, it's as easy as having a meeting, scanning the documents, emailing it to you, and you can cut the check, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, you could,
And they seem positive about it too, so.
Okay, thank you. Board of Revision.
There is no policy on this. This does fall under the Act, however, where we have to set the Board of Revision. In our last meeting, when we went to pass the resolution, you pointed out that that's during our AMM convention.
right?
And there was some concern brought forward that this may have an impact because there may not be enough for quorum. I spoke to Assessment Branch. We can have it after, but not before. So I'm suggesting even the following Monday, when everybody would be back, would be December 2nd at 6. So we would require a resolution that would appoint Jen as the secretary and saying that's our Board of Revision, and we would have to advertise.
Yeah.
I just wonder, can we not put it on a regular council day?
That's gonna push you back a whole extra week, and people are gonna have to get their money in here by usually December 31st is when we put our deadlines.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
I'd
that's
just
fine.
like to see them get more
Sure,
time
yeah, no,
to.
that's perfectly fine. I just wondered, was just making sure that there wasn't.
Yeah, and these could be long evenings too, depending on who. it
Might be
is.
longer, might be no one.
And it might be no
yeah,
one,
It
yeah.
might be no one, but I doubt that.
Yeah. So we would require a
Okay.
resolution.
Outlook plaques.
This one's a little frustrating. We got our Outlook plaques in 2012. We've done some pretty big repairs on them once already. They're in very ill state right now again. I'd asked Shireen, what they'd spent on them in the past. She said about $8,200, and that was just to fix them up. Again, people are hanging off of them. They're pulling them off. I talked to Haymauer about maybe come up with something different. But Shireen said that before maybe we even get further into this, that we should maybe see if council is even interested in replacing them or just taking them off and leaving it as an Outlook.
So that's over here at Dental
Yes.
Park, that semicircular
There's
thing.
2 missing out of the 4 right now.
Yeah.
And they did not well wear. It was the elements also. It's not just vandalism, it was the elements. That's why I was talking to Haymauer about maybe coming up with some ideas with plaques that are embedded and somehow just secured that no one can rip them off and that they're safe to the elements, just like a tombstone.
Does Shireen kind of look after this kind of stuff? Or
Not really, no.
No.
It was just.
Because like in lots of other centers, there are plaques put out, but they're made of something different, but I don't know if they would.
You see them all around.
It's-
town.
That was some of the stuff that we
Yeah.
had, and they just
Bronze
didn't.
ones and
Yeah.
and all that kind of thing, there's different.
So, if the two that's left, maybe we should just take them down, but then we should look at it as a communal type thing to get something replaced by either a group or whatever that wants to look at taking it back over or something. I don't
And I
know.
think that's exactly what she was getting at, is
Yeah.
to see if someone would spearhead it.
Yeah,
Next year's Manitoba 150.
we can apply for money for that.
Is there money available there for something like
I'm
this?
sure there would be.
Yeah,
You know, and not that I think we need to take care of what's our own, and if we can find a partner to help us, let's find a partner.
exactly. There's like, for what, 4 years, 5, 6 years, $8,200? Whatever.
And they're just not holding up to the elements.
No. But it's funny, like you go to different other communities and stuff and they have plaques that are out in the elements and they seem to last forever and ever and ever, so maybe there is something else out there.
Was Neil going to look into?
Yeah,
it
he's
for you?
gonna look into some different options for me.
Good.
So it's just kind of to bring it back to your attention if this is something we even want to look at. But I agree, in the meantime, maybe we should be taking the other ones down.
I think we should preserve what we got.
Yeah.
And work out a plan for next year to have something out in conjunction with Manitoba 150 and budget and plan accordingly. Sound reasonable?
Yes.
Okay. Skippy L.
There was a lot of confusion in this one. I'd mentioned before that we were not successful in getting our grant approved through the province. We'd applied for $3,407.50, being half of the total cost of $6,800. Initially, when I talked to Shireen, I think it got confused with some of the other grant applications, and this was much higher than, I think we'd had quoted 16,000. So basically, we don't have any money in the budget to cover this. However, if you want to proceed, this can go on operating, and I guess we just watch elsewhere. We're gonna need this assessment before we get any kind of repairs. Even if we don't get the assessment, I don't know how much longer that Skippy L will be and how much more it'll deteriorate.
So
Go ahead, Larry.
$6,800 is just to figure out what it's gonna cost to fix it?
Correct.
Well,
It's unfortunate sometimes these heritage structures do end up, it's a granular idea and it's a great
if we put that
idea.
68 into it, we'd be halfway through the repairs.
It's not the way it works.
Would it be a reasonable idea to put together some kind of a committee involving the museum and some people interested in the heritage and culture to figure out a way to deal with this on a long-term basis?
Wasn't there a committee on that? Wasn't it
I don't remember, Bill, I don't know.
Sid Allen and Eddie, well,
Well,
they've
they're
all
all dead.
passed away.
Yeah,
I don't think they'll show
Like
up.
years ago, I think there was kind of a heritage committee or
Yeah.
something.
Could we inquire with Shireen, because I think we need to take a more long-term view on this thing.
because if we just do the repairs, it's gonna happen again in the next how
Yes.
many years?
Yeah.
It's gotta
Maybe
be preserved
Or
properly.
maybe it needs a roof over its head,
Exactly.
you know?
So we're gonna hold off on that and just
Okay,
let it
yeah.
committee?
So if Shireen, because she's the museum curator, if she could spearhead the formation of a committee to talk about this, that would be good,
Okay,
right? And of course, council would
and
participate.
work out long-term plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
rather than just going haphazard at it.
Mhm.
Okay, 4.6, asset management RFP.
This was an item that was discussed in the past in an in-camera conversation, and we had discussed bringing forward into open session to put a resolution forward to get on an RFP to assist with the asset management plan. And that presentation is to be made in person by whoever is presenting an RFP.
Yep.
So that we know what we're getting. So this would be a resolution to get this out.
Everybody's good?
And and we can do it under the federal gas tax thing? Like,
I believe you said yes,
yeah,
Graham?
okay, good. Okay,
Okay, payroll and accounts.
We would require a resolution for pay period 15 in the amount of $133,961.53. General checks, $114,962.56, and EFTs for $62,834.34, for a total of $311,758.43, and resolution for accounts in conflict, check number 23274 in the amount of $864.01, and 23295 in the amount of $315. Would you like us to create a policy on something like this?
Yeah, see, and this is what I was referring to, right? Because if most of those are within a pre-approved budget, I don't understand why it has to come back. I just don't. So if we can figure that out a bit more. And again, we're gonna talk about.
I'm fine with creating a policy so we don't have to do a resolution every time. But I still wouldn't mind if we had the chance to see these at a committee of the whole. You know what I mean?
I think ideally, if we could get the AllNet up to hitting on all
Yeah.
8 cylinders,
Yeah,
there could just be a posting in your pages
Sure.
for you to read, and these are all the checks that are being written this month.
and I'd be fine with that, just so we can see it, just so we don't, I just don't wanna lose touch completely with this stuff. But I agree that we don't need to be passing more resolutions.
And there were no checks that appeared out of the norm here? It was like Morgan Fuels, Airport Fuel,
Yeah.
and just our regular, there was nothing fancy?
Okay. 4.8, special service levy discussion.
I guess I just wanted to get this on the agenda so we could bring this back to do, so we could have a discussion. This was something that was in the works previous to us becoming councillors, or the striking of this council, and it was quickly rebuffed. I would like to bring it back so we can actually have a discussion. There's a lot of good information that has been compiled. It would be good to have everybody sit down and have a discussion about it. And not to, not to just write it off or to come up with, it's more than just a special service levy, it's also about growing our community, right? So I think that this is discussion that needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Okay, so I did some preparation work for the CDC meeting, and we never got the chance to talk about it. That meeting went in an entirely different direction than I was expecting. I'm gonna pass these out, these spreadsheets. You can have. I don't know if I have enough for staff, I'm sorry. Well, hopefully I did, I just grabbed a bunch. And there were some interesting things in it, and this comes from the Board of Revision or the assessment meeting that we had with Lori from the assessment branch when she was talking about where the assessments are going. And Graham, you can come and sit up if you want to listen, because you're an expert on this. So if you look at the charts, based on 2,311 properties in our community, the lower priced homes, if you want to call them that, the more modest priced homes in our community are already bearing a significant burden when it comes to property taxes in our community. The amount of homes, and again, I'm not trying to minimize what other people are paying in taxes, but when you look at the load being shared or burdened or carried by the more modest priced homes in the community, I think they're already paying their share, personally speaking. Given the, I did some specifics, and I wasn't trying in any way to single out any particular homeowner or house, but I went through and I took the 2018 and the 2020 assessments on some individual houses in town. This is all public domain. I never took anything confidential, just to see what some of the impact would be. And when you look down the line, there's some more modest, all things being equal, right? Just the way it is right now. We can start tearing it apart later on. All things being equal, some of the more modest priced homes in our community next year are going to see a pretty interesting tax increase with no changes. And the higher priced homes are going to see some significant decreases. So I think in one sense, the assessment branch has already taken care of a lot of this for us.
Yes, according to Lori, when the helicopters went around last year, they got everybody, pretty much everybody.
So when you look at, some of the homes on Guymer, Some of them will be quite pleased because there's, you know, a home here is seeing a $600 increase, a decrease, a $700 decrease, a $500 decrease, right? And the more modest priced homes are seeing increases anywhere from 130 to, well, 975 bucks, but there's got to be something more to that one. But 440 bucks. You know, that's a significant increase. So if we went even further and added the service levy onto it, and I think the service levy was 350-ish or something, right? You would even see a higher, even more of an increase on those folks. And like I say, in my opinion, they're already paying they're already carrying the burden. So I don't know how we go back to them and ask for more.
Yeah.
Plus now
I
the
have to agree.
changes with the school tax is
And
gonna create
as
a
well,
huge issue.
that's another important change this year.
Big
With the
change.
school tax, historically it went off your entire bill, now it's
No,
just the
it's
education portion.
No, it's
So-
just education.
Just
So-
the education.
So there's, I don't know how many properties within the community that wouldn't be taking advantage of the education property tax credit, but there will be some.
Lots,
Is there lots?
surprisingly lots.
Yeah, I guess if you're looking at a house that's, you know, less than $1,500 in property tax, it's probably not gonna be using, right? So, you know, there's an opportunity here. We have to do something different than what we're doing. Like, I know you're saying, we're looking at it, you know, a 9.5% decrease on some of these homes, and 8% and 3%, and, you know, it's good, and it's not just about property taxes on homes. It's about taxes on businesses, and generating new ways to entice businesses to come to the community. New ways for us to entice residential multifamilies to want to build here. Like, I'm not trying to put the burden on anybody. It's not about that, it's about growing the community. And one way that we can do this, or one way that we can look at it is through a special service levy. So this is our opportunity to talk about it, and I don't think we should just dismiss it.
Well, whether you're trying to put the burden or not, the burden ends up being on the people with the lesser priced homes.
For sure it does, in the short term. But the point of a special service levy is to grow the community so that it spreads that burden out to the whole community. And it should have a net benefit for them. Not in the first year, maybe not in the second year, but eventually it's gonna have a net benefit for everybody in the community. And that's the point of a special service levy. We need to take a longer term view on our community. We need to stop worrying about every single year keeping taxes down and not growing. We need to focus on growing this community, because we better get busy growing or get busy dying. We gotta do one or the other, because the way things sit right now, we've got some ginormous expenses in front of us. The landfill, the lagoon, you know, these are things that have to be paid for. And we keep going back to the same people and asking for more and asking for more and asking for more. Why don't we try to do something different to bring more people into our community? Because what we're doing isn't working. The population is stagnant in our community. It's decreased since the 1970s, I think. So we need to do something.
The assessment branch has to say, level the playing field. So in regards to the higher paying taxes for the, I guess, the larger homes, that will also be reflected in the business community as well, not just residential.
Not just
The
residential.
The commercial, it'll reflect in it as well. Taxes, property taxes or property taxes.
There are a lot of good scenarios that, there's a lot of scenarios that we have that have been done by Ernie App and that sort of thing, that are things that we can look at.
Yes, and all of that was prior to the assessment branch completing their
changeover
job.
for 2019. Is that something that you could do then? Could you plug these numbers into those spreadsheets, or is that? No,
So it takes some work.
It's my understanding Flin Flon has the service levy,
Yeah.
and yet their property taxes, I think, took a 12 or 16% increase this year. So how do you reconcile that with the service levy that was supposed to be the savior, but yet property taxes took a massive increase. How do you balance that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's taking one example out of many. There's a number of examples where a special service levy has worked for communities. Flin Flon's a different community than the Paul. Every community is different than the Paul.
No, and the similarities that I'm getting at is labor, is weather, it's infrastructure. To comparison with the southern Manitoba community, not quite the same.
No, I know, and that's what I'm saying, is we're not comparable.
Yeah.
We're also not comparable to Flin Flon. Flin Flon's a different animal completely than the Paul, so.
The issues of growing our community, you know, I think there's a lot more to it than just the service levy or the taxes. When you look at business in our community, if this service levy would have went through the first time, I think we would have saved somewhere around $30,000 a year in our property taxes. It's nothing to sneeze at. But even that being said, we're not on death's door because we're paying the property taxes. And I think that we feel, as business owners, we feel a moral obligation to not take the money from somebody living on Bignell so that we save more money. That's just not how we do things. And we don't want it, right? We said that during the public hearings, we said it before the election, and we still say it today. Right?
For sure, you're in a different situation though.
Well, we are one of the businesses you're referring to.
No, I am referring to your business,
Yeah.
but $30,000 a year isn't gonna open you another hotel in the community. It's not. But there are other businesses that could save money, that could expand their business. They could open up another location, they could come up with different things to do there, and it's attracting new business into the community. I know for a fact that it is tough to build residential multifamily in this community, specifically because of property taxes. What is one of our biggest, one of the biggest issues in our community is that we don't have enough housing. And I'm not saying residential multifamily is the answer for our housing problems, but it's the start of them, for sure.
I've heard that same story, but I've yet to have, and maybe somebody would come and do that, but no one has provided me with a presentation indicating how the property taxes are the deal breaker for a new apartment building of any size, right? I see some of our local guys have built some fourplexes, they're rented, they're not empty, they haven't torn them down, so clearly they're making their mortgage payments, assuming they have a mortgage. So, I would appreciate if somebody would show me the math that says, I would build this block, but I can't because the property taxes are too high. You probably know as well as I do, there have been some people who've entered the rental market buying smaller single-family homes, for a reasonable price, charging between $1,200 and $1,500 a month for rent, plus utilities. They're making a buck,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah.
So is it a question that the people who are thinking of building the blocks are putting limitations on what they're prepared to charge? Or is there something more to it? Because I haven't seen the math, right? I just haven't seen the math. And if somebody could provide us with that data, well, that would be helpful. And I don't think it's fair to say the service levy will make, if you pass the service levy, then I will be able to build the building. I think we need to show me why it doesn't work. Because if somebody's charging $1,200 to $1,500 a month on a fairly modest home, I gotta think there's room in the market for a higher priced condo.
For sure.
And there is a tax incentive for the
And there is a
person.
tax
Tax
incentive.
incentive for them, yeah. And the tax incentives for 5 years, 10
Yeah.
years.
And this discussion is the discussion I had hoped we would have had with the CDC the other night. And, we could have provided them with these questions and an opportunity to say, could you prepare the financial statement that shows us why the service levy is needed so that you can build an apartment block? But as you know, we didn't have that discussion.
For sure. No, and that wasn't, I don't think that was the purpose of that meeting. It was a different, whole different set of discussions that were taking place. I can guarantee that if we were to ask the CDC for their opinion on it, I'm sure that they would come back with why they think it would either be good or not good for our community. I'm not married to the special service line. I'm not. I'm married to this community. I'm married to growing this community in one way, shape, or form. If this isn't the right answer, what's the right answer? We've got to come up with some type of answer. Because what we're doing, we're just banging our heads against the wall. Because it's just the same thing, year after year. Our community is slowly falling apart, and it's not growing. So we have to do something to grow it.
I think that was in part with the assessment branch not having assessments up to date and current. Now that that's happened, I think there's going to be a lot of change.
Yeah.
I really, really do. There's
Yeah,
gonna be
I
a
don't
lot
know,
of
I
change.
haven't seen all the numbers, but I agree with you, there obviously is some big changes,
Well,
just based on
We
this
won't see all the
spreadsheet.
numbers until people come back and do their appeals and move forward into the following year's budget.
I think we have some other issues as far as businesses opening and more people moving here than taxes. I really do. I don't think taxes is what's stopping people from wanting to develop businesses or develop homes in the bog right now. I don't. And I mean, I got a few buildings and I don't have a problem with paying taxes or paying the rate of taxes I'm paying. It's my, I think it's the same as a lot of other people's, it's different than taxes. I don't want to go into everything that it is, but
Okay, so a councillor has brought forward a proposal that we put this back on the table. Is the consensus of council that we do, or are we done?
I'm done.
When I ran for election, I said that I was opposed to a special service levy. I am not opposed to listening to the CDC give us a presentation on why it could benefit.
Same.
Yeah, true enough.
Okay, so then we will ask the CDC to provide us with a presentation as to why.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
It's going to continue going forward anyway, so.
Picnic in the park.
We do not have a policy on grants to organizations. In the past, we did have a certain amount of money, usually it was $500 set aside for small grants that came forward that the CAO was to use sparingly amongst different groups. We didn't do that this year. So this is a request for a financial,
Oh, my stomach's grumbling. Just a little
Did you
hungry
get that,
there.
Brian?
Look, there's a dog outside.
Okay, so,
so we've been asked to provide a financial contribution for the annual event for displaced brothers and sisters. They're looking at buying some clothing items in the amount of $2,750. Like I said, in the past, I had a budget up to $500 towards events with the intention of spreading those funds to a few organizations, and we don't have that. So that's why this is at council's table. We could make a policy moving forward, for sure. That would say a maximum up to a certain amount, and then we budget so much a year,
Yeah.
and then that's where it ends.
so it's been 4 years now. Has council in the past contributed to this?
I don't believe we've ever been asked to financially contribute,
I've never seen it.
or it might have been just a t-shirt or something, but nothing like this.
Oh. Thoughts?
I was reading this thing, and to those who lost lives on the street and subject to alcohol and drug abuse. And the Tri-Health are teaming up to host this event again. And where was this hosted before?
It's been down by the river.
Oh, so it has been down by the river?
This is happening, but we've never been approached for money.
Oh, okay.
I guess I just never realized that it was happening.
I think it's become a larger event, and that's
They
why.
just asked permission to
Yeah,
use Devon
use the
Park.
Devon Park, and that was it.
So, yeah, in the past, the CEO had a budget of $500 for these events. So, what are we asking here, to make a policy to give the CAO more dollars? for things like this, or?
Right now, we have none.
We have none right now.
We didn't budget this year.
didn't
No,
budget.
okay.
Because when we were watching our budgets, that's where we decided,
Yeah, grants.
well, we council,
Okay.
sorry, grants to organizations were very specific. We didn't set aside monies at all for stuff like this.
Okay,
Where would the money come from? Is there money in
Just out of-
community enhancement? Is there anything? Nope, we spent it all?
Out of our own line somewhere.
Yeah, it'll be out of our operating, it would be.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Could this not be something for like the Reno Corporation?
It's something that they could apply to for sure, TPCRC.
So are we prepared to donate anything? And where the money would come from? Operations?
I think we should donate something. I don't know the amount, but I think we should donate something.
$100, $1,000?
They're not specific in what they're asking for, even if it's, like, they're not even saying that it's monetary.
They asked for
They asked for more.
financial contribution, but they're not saying you have to give us up to $2,700. They're just asking for any kind of financial contribution.
Did I thought that it was,
This
that
year
they
we
were
are anticipating,
asking for like food and that kind of stuff too, though.
That sounded like they had that.
this year we are anticipating that you'll provide support needed by donating a monetary donation of any sort. We're planning on buying clothing items such as jackets, tracksuits, and also care bags.
Or they're talking about donations in the past from other people said, with the meat and drinks. I read it wrong.
so who's the receiver of this? Like, like, who receives it?
Who would we pay the donation to?
No, I know who we pay the donation to, but once they got the donations, who would it go to benefit, like where?
I think any of the displaced persons. who
Persons
are
on
in
the
town,
street.
okay.
What?
Well, they, as far, well, maybe not anymore, but as far as I know, when my wife was at the workplace, that they could just go there and get clothing.
Yeah, I don't know, Bill.
I don't know, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
It's discounted. I
Or
don't think
just-
they-
yeah, I don't know.
you Just go there for free.
They used to give out clothing tickets to the chaplain and the chaplain.
That's how it worked, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think they still do
Yeah.
it like that.
So would the majority wish to give a donation?
I just don't know where it's coming from. I haven't budgeted for it.
Operations
This is-
somewhere, yeah.
It's $100.
HRs,
It's only
$250?
$250,
I would say, just $100.
$100?
I'd say $100, yeah.
$100? Larry?
Sure.
Carrie?
Yeah.
You could give them town local bags.
Sure.
You give the town pump recycling bags.
No.
We could also do a policy
No.
on this moving forward.
Yeah.
And go back to the up to 500 so that this doesn't have to come back to the tables.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Like, I don't know how many of these requests, is this the
I got
first
a lot,
request?
yeah, for now, but usually towards.
But this isn't the first one you've got in 2019, is it?
No, we had some that were just minor that we were like, sorry, we're not
Yeah,
contributing this
okay,
year.
yeah, no, I was just wondering.
But generally in the past, what I had was $500 and I distribute, I would never give it all to one person because you knew you're gonna have more coming in,
For
so.
sure, yeah.
So the consensus is $100?
Yep. And then, but we'll go forward with a policy from here on.
Cool, okay.
Cover everything with policy.
Yep, airport employees training.
So what had happened is, winter maintenance training was budgeted at $15,000 and we had the extra training come in at $6,664 over. So we would require to add that onto our expenditure.
And they have money to cover.
Yeah, they had money, Graham?
I don't really look at this issue. I mean, they run out of surplus. So for a nominal amount like that, they should still be willing to surplus.
They require the training, so they'll have to find it somewhere.
Yep.
A lot of money, eh? Yeah.
Line painting tender.
That also came in over budget.
Over.
Way over.
So they're looking at the difference, and I understand, you were part of this too, Graham, were you not?
That
No?
was part of the discussion.
Okay.
The, I think the issue was that they just, they under budgeted it. We looked at the expense a number of years ago, the last time it was done, and it was in line with what these costs were. So, it was just a poor estimate.
How much over budget are we?
It's significantly. It was, I think we
Four
put,
times budget.
what, 7,500 and it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
2,600 or something?
Yeah.
28.
4 times.
But that was about what we paid last time. Now, there,
That's a long time ago too, right?
it was for
Couple years ago.
the last quarterfinal. The airport reserve has a significant amount of money in it. If they think this is important to keep them in compliance,
We have to, regardless.
it doesn't come out of our bottom line.
No. Okay.
And it's almost $26,000 less than the other bid. Coming at 30?
I have a really hard time
Me too.
with this because this is what James does for a living. Like, he's worked at airports. I can't, it is what it is. I get it, it's 4 times the amount of what we had budgeted, but why is it 4 times the amount of what we budgeted? It is what it is. If it has to be done, it has to be done. We pay a lot of money for Wasco to run our airport, and for them to under budget line painting, by this amount, it doesn't lend a lot of credence to what's going on out there, in my opinion.
I can bring that up as to explain how that happened.
And I don't know if it's just because he deals with things mainly in Winnipeg, and if that's the issue, if that's the case, it is what it is, but it's just, this is
It's a big diff.
it's a huge difference, yes.
And see, one time they used to do it themselves.
And they have a line painter out there, we've seen it. And I'm not saying that they should be doing it,
No.
but I'm just saying.
I think Rowan said they can't. They're
No.
not
They can't,
technically,
yeah.
not legally allowed
Yeah.
to anymore.
Oh,
It's
okay.
very, very sensitive, like, I'm talking like right down to a millimeter off and
Really?
stuff. That's
Yeah.
why we hire out.
For sure.
And the quicker we get moving on this, because I don't know if you've noticed in my reports, October 8th is our inspection date from the feds.
Okay, correct.
Yep. So we have money in the reserve, let's get it done. And let them know of our concern of the disparity. You'd be
I've
surprised.
been in my notes.
Okay, this is next meeting. Policy. We need to talk about policies and establish a policy review committee. So if we can get that on our next agenda. Anybody else got anything for next meeting?
I have something, but I don't know if it would be for a council meeting or if it could be for another evening meeting, because everybody likes to meet in the summer, right?
What do you got?
So now that we're into our budget and it's summertime, if we could have like a group meeting with managers and find out where all the projects are at.
Is that what not you providing your CAOs with that?
Could we,
Yeah.
one of my unspoken,
But we can ask questions, sorry, to
Yeah.
the CAO report.
one of
Or you can
my,
send an email.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You're always welcome to.
one of my unspoken intentions is in September to hold basically a planning meeting.
Okay.
Because we'll all have a year in, there'll be no more rookies left. To review the past year, get some
Okay.
updates on where we are and where we want to go. Because I would really like to start the budget in September.
Okay, I'm fine with September,
Okay.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we'll.
Should always have some type of planning before
Yes.
we
Yeah.
start looking at numbers.
And I'm thinking like a Saturday morning. Everybody's fresh, except Larry.
That's when Larry's the freshest. He's still awake on Saturday.
Cool, okay, so we have a couple of in-camera items. There'll be no business coming out of them. Thank you for coming. Get out and enjoy the evening.
Somebody gonna say the phrase?
Yeah, resolve that.
7:15.
I guess
Be in there.
I've looked at it a few times. Good catch, Brian.
I live for the moment. Yeah.
Be it resolved that we do now move ourselves into the in-camera portion of the committee of the whole with Mayor Jakes and the chair to discuss matters requiring our attention. Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Brian.